Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Muslim Marriage Podcast, where we talk about healthy relationships from a Muslim lens. I'm Zara Hassan.
And I'm AJ, and we've been married for 3 years now.
And let's get started.
Let's get started.
On this week's episode, we're going to talk about how to make a long-distance relationship work. So this is going to be a little bit of an interesting episode, right? Usually I spend a lot of time sitting down and specifically workshopping and scripting out each episode. Sometimes we do rehearsals. This episode we're going to wing it. We're going to see what happens. Because this is just a topic that comes up so much in coaching. And again, this is a topic that I've spoken about before in other venues.
Yeah.
If there was a topic that we're going to wing, this is the one. I think it'll still be very useful for the people, In Shaa Allah.
In Shaa Allah.
Okay. All right. So let's see how it goes. So for when it comes to how we're going to approach it, in the first half, we're going to talk about long distance relationships for people who are single. So that means talking stage.
Yeah.
And talk about some advice of how to have a successful talking stage, if at all possible. And then in the second half, we're going to talk about long distance marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah. About what I've seen in coaching, what works, what doesn't work, and our own experiences, because we have been long distance we were long distance for 4 months in the past.
Yes.
Okay. All of that makes sense?
It does. Okay, let's start first and foremost.
Okay.
What you need is a kite.
Okay.
And a long enough piece of string.
Of course.
Right? So that way you can let the wind sort of carry the kite across the canyon.
Uh-huh.
Once it's across the canyon, your partner should grab the kite.
Okay.
Take the string and tie it to a tree.
All right.
You take your end of the string and tie it to a tree on your side.
Okay.
If there's not a tree, just find a helpful stranger.
All right.
Okay?
Okay.
And what you got to do now is you got to run a piece of rope from one end to the other. Right?
Do you need me to stop?
No, of course not. No, this is very important business.
All right.
Once you've got that piece of rope across to the other end, right? You can layer more pieces of rope, make it stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
Now you have a solid foundation that connects both ends of the canyon together. This is where you start building that bridge.
Okay. So is this a metaphor or
eventually you'll be able to get it around, like over the canyon, and the relationship won't have to be long distance anymore.
Okay. So you need kites and people. It's just a lot of materials. But
you don't
can
necessarily
work.
need a stranger. If you can't find any trees, you just tie down your friends.
Yeah, or just listen very carefully and you might hear one fall in the forest.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there you go.
I have heard strangers falling in the forest. Terrible, terrible things.
All right,
scary stuff. I had to run.
We're getting way too deep down the inside joke rabbit hole. So we're just gonna stop it there. All right. So we get back to the topic of long distance relationships, short of kites and canyons. If you're if you're single and you are starting to meet people, and you are considering whether or not to expand your net by looking at long distance relationships, my advice to you: don't do it.
Don't do it.
Just don't do it. Simply because of, like I've said before, over the years I've coached by now well over 1,000 people. I've seen so much, every iteration of long distance relationship attempt through every single app and every venue, and multiple different combinations of different countries, and very, very small number of them work out.
Yeah.
I would say maybe, if there was a number, anecdotally, probably 1% or less. So if you are considering a long distance relationship and you're not already in a talking stage, it's not already something that's moving forward, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it for 2 reasons. First reason is because marriage is so already a very risky process.
Yeah, and long.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But what is it, like, you're going to be marrying somebody stranger or not, who's going to be stranger to you, in a romantic sense, and who's going to be in your house, and you're going to have to share a mortgage, and you're going to have to be able to feel comfortable to go to sleep at night with their eyes closed with this person in your house, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk there. And because of the heightened or increased difficulty of being able to vet the people,
Yeah.
that comes simply from not being in the same city or country,
Yeah.
that risk increases a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah, people can say a lot of things about who they are without any of it being true.
Yeah.
And I've seen that happen a lot. That's the first reason to not do it.
It's like a fisherman, right? If you are trying to get into a long distance relationship, you're talking with them, texting with them, and they're like, you know what? I am a fisherman, and my cat likes to fish with me.
All right. Okay. I didn't. Okay. Oh, catfish.
Yeah.
All right, I get you. Oh, yeah, catfishing is a thing, right? But even if you're 100% sure they are who they are, I wouldn't do it because of the increased risk. That's the first reason to not do it. The second reason to not do it is because of the nature of because of the literal distance and long distance relationships.
Yeah.
It tends to be the preferred method for people who are emotionally unavailable.
Yeah.
Right? So as you are out there and trying to meet people, let's say you are using a dating app like we spoke about last week, and you set your filter to be open to people in other countries. The number of people who are emotionally unavailable that you come across are going to be much higher. Yeah, because they prefer long distance because subconsciously they're aware that it has a very low chance of working. They're not 100% interested in commitment, so they prefer an avenue that lets them pretend to want commitment, and to reap the benefits of companionship without actually committing, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is everybody. I'm saying that the number of people who are emotionally unavailable increase in the long distance market.
True.
Right? So those are the two reasons. Increased risk overall.
First reason is long, second reason is distance.
Yeah. First reason is increased risk overall, and second reason is higher proportion of emotionally unavailable people. Having said all that, if you are already in a talking stage with somebody and you have already, your families have spoken and things are moving along, right? And now it's just more a question of how do we make sure, like, what is there anything that I can do on my end to make sure that this works out, or what can I do on my end to vet, right? So like with every other situation, regardless of how you meet a person, the vetting process, the things that you're going to be looking for during the vetting process stay the same.
Yeah.
It's the same 4 things. You're going to be trying to vet the person's capacity to be able to build a healthy marriage, right? And we've talked about in other places. The second thing is you're going to be looking for their character, right? Is this somebody who you admire? Is this somebody who you would want your child to be just like? Thirdly, compatibility, right? So the compatibility is a very wide spectrum. First of all, compatibility in terms of logistics, that becomes a very big issue.
That's true.
Yeah, and in long distance, is it even feasible that you guys are going to be able to close that gap and live in the same place? And how does that work?
Presumably,
yeah.
Once you guys get close to getting married, you guys would want to move together.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. But who's the one who's going to move and make the sacrifice? That becomes an issue sometimes, and leaves potential for resentment down the road. Just the logistics of all of it.
Yeah.
But there's also all the other compatibilities that exist everywhere else. So compatibility in terms of attraction, compatibility in terms of finances, compatibility in terms of expectations, values, that whole long list. Actually working on a PDF, a free PDF resource on how to start to assess compatibility for people, In Shaa Allah. And when it's available, I'll let people know on my Instagram page. But it's something that's a work in progress. But compatibility, and I think what we did, and fourthly, connection. Right?
Yeah.
So just like in every other place, people spend a lot of time vetting for whether or not there's connection there, whether or not there's ease of communication, like how do I feel when I speak to them. so a lot of the situations I'll get would be, Salam alaikum, sister. I met a so and so brother who lives in such and such country. Things are going very well. He spoke to my family spoke to his family, etc. And but I feel like that he's not really communicating. He's not consistent in his communication, or like it's usually becomes an issue of connection.
Yeah.
That's all that's being assessed. If the connection is good, they usually go ahead. If the connection is bad, that's when they come see me.
Yeah.
But that's really all that is the focus. It's important that you also focus on the other three things: the capacity, the character, and the compatibility. Those things are really important, and they also need to be assessed.
Yeah.
How you're going to be assessing them might be a little bit different when there's distance involved.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, you're still going to be doing the same thing, which is observing. Observing, for example, if you're observing somebody's character, do they do the things that they say that they're going to do? Like if you agree on a certain time that you're going to speak to each other regularly, does that person come at that time? Do they show up at those times?
Yeah.
If they say that they want to speak to your family, do they follow through with that and actually speak to your family? Like all of these things. Like, do they make the effort to
Are
try?
they reliable?
That's what it is. So character. Do what they say does what they say match up with what they do? Right. In general, that's how you assess character.
Have they ever sued anyone for defamation?
I mean, that's where I start.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first thing that I look for. But in addition to that when you're assessing for compatibility, we spoke a little bit about that, In Shaa Allah, but it tends to be a bigger subject. I might just do a whole episode one day just on compatibility.
Yeah.
But at the least start with the compatibility of logistics. Like, you have to be honest with yourself. Will you be able to actually close the gap?
Yeah.
Right? Are both of your families involved? This is another place where there's an issue with compatibility,
Yeah.
where one family might be on board and the other family might not be, depending on whose family it is and how old are the individuals and what does the religion say about that. So, for example, if there's a sister, her family is on board, but the brother, his family is not on board.
Yeah.
Our religion it tends to be a little bit more lenient.
Yeah.
When because men don't need wali. So you just have to be honest about the logistics. Can this work?
Yeah.
Right. And when my clients come to me with these situations and say, his family is not on board, doesn't like me for A, B, C, D, E, I always say it's a case by case situation. If it becomes an issue of jurisprudence, I would say go to an imam. But if it's not and the religion is clear and you're just trying to understand what would be the wisest decision, I usually tell people, if your family members are healthy, generally healthy,
Yeah.
and they've been supportive of you in every other place in your life, don't sacrifice your family.
Yeah.
Right? Because that you want your children to have their grandparents, right? You want to be able to share this experience. Marriage is very hard. You're going to need advice. You're going to need support in all different types of forms. You're going to need your family, and just it's always a wiser decision to move forward with your family than without. Right.
Just a quick summary for the guys.
Yeah.
You are the PlayStation. She's the Nintendo Switch.
That's what it is.
And you got to figure out how to do crossplay.
Okay, all right. That made no sense to me. Right, that's what it is. If you can take your family with you, take your family with you. This tends to, again, the family issues tend to be a lot of where the problems arise in long distance situations. So I think that's character, compatibility, and capacity. So the way that you assess capacity, again, this is a larger topic, but this actually tends to be easier to see and assess in a long distance relationship than a regular real life relationship, right? Because it becomes, because of the limitation and how the two of you can interact, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't sit in front of each other with your family, etc. Their communication needs to be on point.
Yeah.
So your communication skills have to be at a higher level and more developed in order to be even to begin to make any long distance relationship work.
Yeah, because you got to be enticing from afar.
Okay, that's not all right. But you have to be able to you have to be able to talk things through.
Yeah.
To remove the misunderstandings. You have to be able to. There's going to be a higher amount of core wounds that can come up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, if somebody, and actually a lot of people have a core wound around abandonment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so because of the distance there, and the other person might be very busy and they might have things, and there might be a time difference, you're not going to be able to talk to them as often as you would if they were in the same place. And that might lead to issues around feeling a little bit anxious, right? And having issues around that sense of connection. This is when you start to have a conversation with the other person and say, this is what I'm going to need in order for it to feel okay during this relationship. When I say relationship, I mean this talking stage for the purpose of marriage. But inshallah, people understand what I mean when I say that.
They will, yeah, inshallah.
But this is what I'm going to, you're going to have you have to be more willing to be a little bit more vulnerable.
Yeah.
And in order to state, this is what I need to see in order to be able to take this relationship seriously, to know that it's going somewhere, to be able to take you seriously. I'm going to need this level of consistency. All of this is usually things that I teach to people during the newlywed stage. Yes. But a little bit of this is going to have to already be there during the talking stage.
Yeah.
So your communication skills have to be on point. And all of this means that it's actually easier to assess capacity. It's harder to assess everything else, but capacity might be easier. Inshallah, all of that long diatribe made sense.
It did, yes.
Yeah.
It did. What you got to do is you got to be compatible, you got to be consistent, and you got to be reliable, and you got to be communicative, and you got to make sure that the person doesn't get bored of you.
Yeah, it sounds exhausting. Which is why I said at the top of it, if you can avoid it, avoid it. But if it is, so many times, clients will already know somebody, meet somebody, and then move.
Yeah,
for school
they're
or
like,
something.
I know a friend of a friend.
Yeah, right. So it happens, right? It happens. And let's talk about a little bit before we move on to the marriage situation. Let's talk about some of the factors that help. Right, that because the way that I think, alhamdulillah, is I think in patterns.
Yeah.
And having spoken to so many different people, I pay attention to see what's common in the ones that work, and what's common in the ones that don't work. In the ones that do work, in the talking stages, the long distance talking stages that do work, what I've noticed is that number one, at some point they've met.
Yeah,
the ones that do work, at some point they've met me. Usually it's one person, usually the gentleman will fly over to meet the young lady's family.
Right?
I never ever recommend a woman travel to go meet a man's family.
Yeah.
Again, everything's case by case, but in most cases I don't recommend that. There's safety issues.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, it's and at the end of the day, if a gentleman, because of the way social protocols are set up, it's understood that it's going to be the gentleman that flies over, right?
Yeah.
So if for whatever reason, if he is able to fly over financially, visa-wise, all the things, if he is able to fly over but is not making that sacrifice, this is probably someone you shouldn't be marrying.
Yeah, because he wouldn't sacrifice the future for you either.
Yeah.
Also, if you have a situation where the person's not like actually physically long distance from you, but rather he is restricted.
Yeah.
To the effect where it's like a long distance type of thing, right?
Yeah.
That kind of restriction, it's sort of like, let's say if he was in jail or something.
Yeah.
Right? Or if he was in prison.
Yeah.
First of all, how did you guys meet?
I mean, we're not gonna go down that road because we're not in no position to judge anyone's past or
Second of all, will they be there for you when they get out?
I mean, that's you don't know, right? That's again another risk. Honestly, that risk stands whether it's what.
I actually heard a story of this guy who was falsely imprisoned.
Yeah.
And his wife immediately sued for divorce,
Oh,
and
subhanallah.
they got divorced.
Okay.
And he was in jail for like, what was it, like 15 years or something? I can't remember the exact time frame.
Okay.
Maybe 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
He got out
Mm-hmm.
because they found him innocent.
Mm-hmm.
At some point,
Mm-hmm.
they realized that the people that were prosecuting pushed for prosecuting under false evidence or something like that.
Yeah.
So he was awarded some sort of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And his ex-wife showed up again, and she's like, I want half of that because I underwent stress and trauma
Uh-huh.
as well.
All right.
And he said no.
Of course.
And so she tried to sue. And the judge said, what are you talking about? You left him instantly.
Yes, exactly.
You're not getting anything.
I guess she took her shot, right?
Yeah.
She took a shot, and thank God it didn't work out.
Yeah.
But it's
I can understand, however,
mhm.
like her divorcing him if she thought that he committed the crime
Yeah.
that was like worth it to go 20 years in jail.
Yeah.
And in that sense, had she been someone else that would have tried to make it work,
Mm-hmm.
that would have been another type of long distance relationship because that's a place that you can't really visit them unless it's on like a weekly basis.
Yeah.
All that to say,
Mhm.
some long distance relationships aren't physically long distance but restricted.
Yeah, no, that happened. COVID, right?
Yeah.
So there were a lot of long distance in that situation.
Yeah.
But most of what we said stands. And that's how you can approach it if you were a single person.
Yeah.
And you were considering long distance or in long distance. Now, if we move on to people who are married, right? Everything shifts a little bit.
The goalposts shift.
Yeah, a little bit. Actually, before we do that, we were talking about some of the things that I've noticed that are in the situations that have worked out. Let me just list a couple of those very quickly.
Okay.
So the first thing we said is that at some point that they've met. Another thing that we said is that the logistics check out, right? So that there is a very clear plan of how it is that they're going to close that gap in such a way that nobody's making some huge sacrifice.
Yeah.
You know, In Shaa Allah, and there's a date associated with that.
Yeah.
And number 3, and this is because for the people that I'm talking to, both partners want the situation to work. I know it seems obvious, but it's one of those where sometimes a client will come to me and tell me about her situation, and it'll be very clear that she's putting in a lot of effort.
A lot of effort.
And the individual on the other end is just really just emotionally unavailable, distant, giving excuses, giving a lot of reasons, if at all, disappears at times. He's not really pulling his side of the boat, right? Or he's not really picking up his side of the couch, and it's just really her struggling. So, the things that you need in order, like, to give yourself an idea of whether or not this has legs and it can work out. Number 1, it tends to be work in your favor if you've met at some point.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when I say met, I mean your family, somebody's family has met the other person, right? Number 2, that the logistics make sense and they check out and they serve both parties. It's not just one or the other. And number 3, that both people want the situation to work out. So if you're in a situation and you are really asking yourself about what are this other person's intentions, are they even interested in, is it just, when you start asking yourself these questions, it probably is that you're the only one who wants it to work.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be a time to find someone who wants what you want.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 things that you should look out for if you're in one of these situations. Now let's move on to the people who are married.
Yeah.
First we're going to talk about what I've seen work, and then we're going to talk about what's worked for us.
Yeah.
Right? So when people are married, again, 2 things that you're going to need. 2 things that you're going to need in order to make the situation work. Number 1, a very clear end date for when the long distance is going to end. So if it's going to be something open-ended where one person had a job, right? Like one spouse got a job and moved somewhere, and sometimes in a different country, and the other spouse is just gonna have to wait there.
Yeah.
This is many of us grew up with in situations like this with our parents, right? That we can now appreciate as adults, right? I know many of my cousins where their dad was working overseas, and they lived here in Canada with their mom, right? Or vice versa.
Yeah.
And now we can see how much of a toll it took on their marriages. Many of those marriages ended in divorce, right? Because it's really hard.
No.
It's not easy. So there should be a clear end date. So if you don't have that yet with your spouse, the first thing that you need to do is sit down and make a plan and really decide if this thing that's making you move is worth it.
Yeah.
Worth it overall. Like, what is it that you want more? So have the end date. I cannot stress how important that is. Number two, a second thing that you need, also hugely important, is this very solid communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, it needs to be over communication.
Yeah.
Because it needs to make up for all of the other ways in which that you can't maintain your connection.
Yeah.
When when the two of you are living together in the same house and you're seeing each other on a daily basis,
Yeah.
you have all five love languages that are possible, right? But when you are now long distance, you're gonna have to get very creative in order to be able to maintain and build that bond between the two of you, because that bond is what gets people through. That's what, when you ask the people who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, tabarakallah, been married for this distance, and whenever I get a chance, I ask them these questions, they tell you it's the connection, it's the bond.
It's the bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When things get hard, that's what will carry you through.
There's a potential. I thought about it. A potential way to strengthen the bonds of a relationship.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
You guys take a vacation
Okay.
to a cult.
Okay. You lost.
Right?
It was promising in the beginning. I was like, all right. And then cult.
Yeah,
right,
you take a vacation to a cult.
Okay.
And you try to do things that gross out the entire family.
Oh.
Right? So you go to a commune for an occasion.
Communication? Communication. All right. I think half our people just logged off.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I entertain the other half.
Yeah. There you go. That works out. But yeah, I like that one. That was a good one. That was a solid 8 out of 10. I like it. So you need communication. When I say communication, again, it's over communication. There's going to be some things that you do spontaneously, but I also highly recommend that you have a routine about a set schedule, like according to your time differences and your own work schedules and etc. You create a set schedule for when the two of you are going to speak, if possible, every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And during that time when the two of you are speaking, it's important that you focus, right? So you're not really doing much else except actually communicating and talking to each other.
Yeah, guys, you can't just like play games on the side. They will know.
Yeah, we do know. And in addition to speaking, you can also schedule activities. Like if you wanted to watch a movie together, if you wanted to cook together. I know these things sound corny, but it's important and it helps. Even if it's as simple as, because alhamdulillah, in 2024, we have access to so much technology that makes the process easier. I don't know how our parents did it when all they had phones and snail mail.
They write letters.
Yeah, snail mail and phones.
And then they just wait.
Exactly. So that's like they were warriors for making it work as long as many of them did, right?
Yeah.
But we have the benefit of technology.
We have so much good technology now. We actually have a surefire way to men. One way you can absolutely remember your wife. 100% guaranteed. When you're driving, right? You just FaceTime her and put her in the passenger seat.
Okay. And
you'll get that authentic backseat driving experience.
There's probably an app for that at this point. Okay. But yeah, actually that's a good idea. Where you just where I was leading up to is that you just video call each other, and if you want, you don't have to say anything. You just put the phone somewhere, and then they could just watch you go about your day, and then you can just be in at least virtual, any kind of proximity.
Yeah.
While you do that. So there's all different kinds of ways. I remember sometimes clients ask me where they say that their love language is physical touch, and I'm like, yeah, there's all kinds of different ways where you can for some clients I say your spouse, you can mail each other the clothing.
I think they have haptic feedback gloves.
Gloves. I haven't heard of gloves, but there's bracelets. But before we get to the bracelets, right?
Yeah.
You can even just take clothing, or the perfume or the cologne of your spouse, right? Because your sense of smell is in that realm of physical touch, right?
Yeah.
So that's very helpful. But yes, you also have I think bracelets is what
There's
I've
some
seen
weird
online.
new technology coming out where I think a person can put on a bodysuit and it feels like the person's hugging you.
What I was speaking about is there are bracelets, right? Where there will be one for you and one for them. And I think you have an app on your phone. And for example, if you tap on the bracelet, it will buzz on the other end.
Shock.
Yeah, it will, well, a small one. It will buzz on the other end, right? So it is a way to have that love language met.
Yeah.
Right?
You do one tap, and then you do 3 taps, and then you do 4 taps, or is it 1, 4, 3?
And as for the other love languages, gift giving, it's obvious, right? So you can just send each other gifts. We have multiple
preferably that bracelet to start with.
There you go. Multiple different ways to do that. You have acts of service. This takes a little bit of creativity, So for instance, if your spouse is going to have to cook every night, and you have children, maybe you send her Uber Eats, or
Call
you
her
send
911.
All right, or you send them Uber Eats, right? So or DoorDash or Skip the Dishes or whatever app that you have, send them food or send them groceries. So acts of service is going to take a little bit of creativity, but that's one way that you can do that. But
house cleaning service.
Yeah, quality time we spoke about that you're going to just spend time with each other. I'm sorry, I always forget one or two of these love languages. I don't know why. Every time I forget.
Let's start with the count. What is it?
Acts of service, physical touch, gift giving,
words of affirmation.
That's the one. Words of affirmation. That's what I forgot this time. And words of affirmation is simple. Just text each other, right?
Yeah, it's like, I affirm you. I agree that you exist. I respect that you exist. I wish you to continue to exist.
This is a good place to start.
Yes.
You can start that with your spouse. But words of affirmation. So you can sit down, create a schedule, right? Say these are the times where we're going to interact in such and such ways, and try to be cognizant of including each of your love languages there. And you're just stick to that routine, right? And it's important that you invest a little bit of time to be able to stick to that routine, because that bond between the two of you is everything.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the most valuable things that you have in this dunya, In Shaa Allah. And investing in it, investing time, investing energy, investing money into that bond, and making sure that your spouse has their emotional needs met, and yours are met, is the best. Like I can't think of a bigger return on investment.
The best thing to do is to not go into the long distance relationship, because the whole point of marriage is to fulfill half your deen.
Yeah.
So if you guys can, don't go long distance.
Yeah.
But if you have to go long distance, then make sure that there's an end goal to it. Don't just leave it open-ended.
So those would be some of the suggestions. So now we'll talk about we were in a situation where you were away for 4 months, and you were visiting family, and taking care of family for a little bit of time, and so that was hard. That was a very difficult time. But alhamdulillah, we were able to come up with ways to be able to get through that time in such a way that it didn't, in my opinion,
very quickly we gave up on watch parties because we couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. So there are apps where you can actually sit down and watch the same things together, watch your shows
Yeah.
together, whatever it is that the two of you watch. Yeah, that was very hard. But one of the things that I like that worked out really well is that both of us are blessed, alhamdulillah, that we were working from home at the time.
Yeah.
So we would just we would call each other, video call, and then I would just put the phone there, and then we'll put each other on mute, and then you would just be there throughout my workday. Hopefully, none of my bosses are listening, but they somehow came across this podcast. But you would just be there, and I would just be there.
They couldn't do anything even so, right? Because like I had on mute and all I could see is your face. I didn't say anything on the screen.
All right. We're just in case they're listening. None of this happened. This is all theoretical and hypothetical. But hypothetically,
Conjecture.
yes, you were just there, and alhamdulillah, I was just there on your end. And the interesting thing is, because like it's many, many hours throughout the day that you were just there, we came up with little charades, right? Because we can't actually speak due to the nature of our work.
Yeah.
So we would come up with like little sign language that's just between the two of us, to make each other understood, and that was fun.
Yeah.
And then we would play charades games.
Yeah.
And that was fun, right? Because one of the things that I teach all married clients, that any of my clients, they all know, the secret to maintaining connection in marriage is play.
Yeah.
There is nothing that will connect the two of you better. It's like glue.
Yeah.
It's like emotional glue, like nothing else that I've seen work well and consistently is play.
It got a little weird at the end because I think there was a stretch of time at which we tried to help Cher, singer-songwriter.
Yeah?
I think we got confused when we were thinking about charade.
Okay, charades. But play, right? So play, try to incorporate that somewhere in what you do. You remember we used to play chess.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would play chess or other online games. And it was fun.
We gave up on that very fast.
Yeah, I lost too many times. But it was fun while it was there. So find different ways to incorporate that. It can be a board game. It could it's gonna take creativity. Well. Yeah, we did. So it's going to take a little bit of creativity, but the overall goal is to develop a routine such that the two of you have set times where you are going to be able to talk to each other and see each other throughout the day, and that incorporates your love languages. You need to know what your spouse's love language is. It's a lot easier when you know what your spouse's love language is, and those are the things that I've seen really, really help couples, right? Yeah. And within all of that, find ways to play. In Shaa Allah.
Yep.
So those are the two things. In Shaa Allah, hopefully that's helpful. Do you think there's anything else that we need?
My primary love language is English.
Okay. Because I've always found this interesting for people who have more than one language.
Sure.
And they ask it, well, I speak both of them equally. The question I always ask them is, which one do you think in when you're thinking?
Which love language do I think in?
No, which actual like spoken language.
Oh, okay, yeah, English.
There you go. So when people would say to me,
that's how you know your mother tongue. It's the language that you think in is your mother tongue.
Yeah, there you go. Weirdly, for me, yeah, it is English, but I think I speak both of them pretty well. Other people might disagree. You can hear me, but it's English somehow.
I speak English very good.
I think you do. It's marvelous. So that brings us to the question of this.
I English very well.
You English best.
I best of Englishmen. Why many words when few words mean?
What was his name? I forget, from The Office.
Kevin, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Kevin. That was a good episode. He said, why many words when few words do trick?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen that way too often. Okay, so that brings us to this week's question. This week we're just going to go through one question. I think it encompasses a lot of what it was that we said.
Yeah.
Once again, it's from that wonderful place of our Muslim marriage subreddit. So this is a sister. She's literally asking how to survive long distance marriage.
Yeah.
Right? And she says, me and my husband only got married a few months ago and won't be living together until 2 months' time. I know it's not long to go, but the whole process has been really tough, and I feel like ever since we signed the paper, He has become more complacent, and it is making me very doubtful for the life we are going to be living together shortly. I am giving up everything to move to his country. That includes career, friends, lifestyle. And I am hoping to rebuild all of this there. But currently, he has a very busy life, and I feel like he doesn't always make enough time for me, nor does he support me emotionally. I am currently living alone and missing him a lot, but I feel that he doesn't miss me as much as I do. And sometimes he is so invested in his life that I feel he forgets to even ask about what's going on in mine. I guess I'm just feeling a bit disconnected. And when we are together in person, it's better. But even when I try to communicate all this to him, still nothing seems to change. I want to make this work, but my mind goes to a very dark place when he is busy the whole day with work, family, friends, and I feel like a last priority. Even if he does text me, to say he loves me, I feel like he doesn't really show it the way that I want him to. If it is like this now, surely it will be even worse when we are living together and I'm stuck at home waiting for him until I find a job to occupy myself. Any couples have been through this and come out stronger. So, subhanAllah, the sister is going through a very difficult time. Inshallah, I hope it's gone better for the both of them. But what do you think about the situation?
I think that the priority matrix there, the pyramid, she labeled it as work, family, friends, wife.
Yeah.
Wife at the bottom. Which in some cases you might be thinking, oh, the wife is the foundation, the support, right? However, this is not that kind of pyramid.
Okay.
It's not that kind of pyramid. No, this is the type of pyramid where the things at the bottom are the ones that are taking the most beatings, right?
Oh, yeah.
The ones that are carrying the most weight.
Yeah.
The things at the bottom don't want to be at the bottom, right? They are the minimum wage workers, right? Theoretically, what we would want her to be is the priority.
Yeah, so she's not prioritized here.
She's not being prioritized. Now, I understand that work is a huge aspect, especially in this economy, with inflation and everything like that.
Yeah.
And I understand that he shouldn't have to give up his career or his job in order to fly over to accommodate her.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whoever it is, and it looks like they've already decided on this, whoever it is who's more cemented with their career that is not able to move around, whoever it is that is like able to support the family better, those are the ones that are usually cemented, right? It looks like they decided that it's him. But whether it's once he finishes work, then he can take care of his mom, right? Take care of his wife. But his friends, that's where it gets a little weird, you know?
Yeah.
Like, he shouldn't be prioritizing his friends over his wife because, believe it or not, the friends that you're going to have are not the friends that you're going to have in the future, right?
Yeah.
When you're 60 years old, you might have different friends. You guys might get distant. You might only see each other once a year.
Yeah.
Right? When you're 90 years old, you guys won't even see each other at all. You guys are just going to be like completely forgotten about each other.
Yeah.
Right? But she's going to be there with you.
Inshallah.
You know, inshallah. She's going to be the one that's changing your diaper. She's going to be the one that's taking care of you. Right? She's going to be the one that's caring for you in your old age.
Yeah.
So do the activities that you guys can here and now while you can.
Yeah.
The things that are fun. Prioritize her. And I feel like guys fall into this pit trap where they're like, okay, I've secured her. She's my wife now.
Yeah.
Now I don't have to work as hard. Now I can just coast, you know? Now I don't have to try as hard to win her affection every single day. I don't have to try as hard to show her that I love her every single day. It's now just understood. We've signed the agreement. We've signed the contract. That contract says I will care for her, I will love her, and I will protect her. Why do I need to do any more than that? Why do I need to remind her that I love her?
Yeah.
She already knows this. I chose to spend the rest of my life with her, and I'm supporting her, right? And I haven't decided to move away and like marry other people. I haven't decided to divorce her. I'm still here for her. What more do I need to prove? You need to prove more, dude.
Yeah.
You need to prove more. You need to prove more. There's nothing else to it.
Yeah. I agree with 100% of every single thing that you said, right? And you said a lot of it much more eloquently than I could. But the situation here really does a good job of outlining what's the most common scenario. And in her situation, they're going to be apart for 2 months. 2 months. But it's important that I say that back when I was coaching both men and women, it was almost equal when it comes to men versus women.
Yeah.
Who would be in the shoes of the person who felt disconnected?
Yeah.
Right, who was feeling the absence of their partner more. Half the time it would be the men, half the time it would be the women. And if you pay attention to the forums, the people who are asking, half the times it's the men who's asking, saying, I feel really disconnected from her. I don't really know where she is, etc., etc. And half the time it's the women, right? So it's both genders. But I agree with everything that you said, that you need to absolutely prioritize your spouse, right? And prioritizing your spouse and investing in your marital bond. Again, there are very few better return on investments than there are that. Very few. So it's absolutely worth your time.
Yeah.
So with respect to her situation specifically, so she has this situation where she's going to be giving up everything and moving there.
Yeah.
So that's the situation that they've worked out. That's fine. Whenever I have a client who comes to me, and that's under those circumstances, I tell them to prepare, right? I tell them to prepare and understand in as best as they can, try to find a job now, if that's possible. There are resources online where you can start to try to make friends now, or communities now. Sometimes I will tell them there are Facebook groups. So if you're moving to a different city, that different city will have Facebook groups for women of, we'll say, Toronto, or women of Minneapolis, right? Or if you want more specifically, Muslim women of Minneapolis, or even more specifically, Pakistani women of Minneapolis, etc. So there are Facebook groups, and it's a powerful resource and a powerful way to start to be a member of that community, so that it's a lot less lonely by the time you get there.
Yeah.
That is an aside. What the bigger issue here is what we spoke about earlier in the podcast, that long distance relationships have a unique way of triggering that core wound of abandonment.
Yeah.
So many of us will have that. And whenever it comes to a partnership, one partner will have that wound at least on a higher scale than the other. So it's important, if you are in a long distance marriage right now and you feel like you don't have that wound, your partner probably does. One of the two of you probably does.
Yeah.
So it's important that you sympathize, that just because I feel like the amount of communication we're doing now is sufficient for me, and I feel like my emotional, so this would be if I was speaking to her husband, and I would be telling him, just because you feel like your emotional needs are met, it's sufficient, I'm good. And I'm going to walk away from the table now and just assume that hers are also met. You can't do that.
Yeah.
It's a partnership. You need to check in with your spouse, see how they're doing with the situation, see if there is a gap there, if they're feeling disconnected. Sometimes people won't, like she seems like she's very self-aware, very articulate, and was able to exactly speak about what it is that's wrong. So not everyone has those communication skills. Your spouse might not be telling you.
Yeah.
So it really it's important to be able to establish a space between the two of you where you can have those discussions of how are you doing?
Yeah.
And check in and say, hey, today my day was this, my day was that. But how are you really doing? How did you feel today? Instead of how are you doing, you can even ask the question of how are you feeling?
Yeah.
And how are you handling this separation? I know it's been hard on me, right? And I feel like these conversations, this time that we're talking together after work, or this time that we're talking together in the mornings, this has been really helping me.
Yeah.
And I feel like this has been enough for me on my end to get me through the rest of the day. Has it been enough for you?
A way to simplify that sentiment
Yeah.
of I got mine, there's 6 chicken wings
All right.
on the plate. Okay?
Okay.
For the sake of argument, we're going to say boneless chicken wings.
If you make me laugh, I'm going to
I'm not
cough.
going to make you laugh. No.
Okay.
No, I'm being serious here.
Okay.
There are 6 chicken wings, and you eat 5 of them
Mm-hmm.
because you keep going until you're full.
Of course.
And once you've ate your 5th one, you're satisfied.
Yeah.
And you're like, I got mine.
Mm.
But there's one remaining.
Yeah. And you didn't check in.
You didn't check in.
You didn't chicken.
You didn't chicken.
That
You
wasn't
made
on
that joke, not me.
That wasn't on purpose. I just
You
forgot how
make
to
yourself
speak.
laugh, not me.
I forgot how to speak.
Yeah. You didn't chicken.
All right. But you didn't check in. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get you. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Right? So it is
Now
that.
she has to eat the one chicken wing
Mhm.
and then lick the plate clean.
That's it.
Yeah.
So it's important that you that you stay cognizant of how your spouse is handling difficult. It's not just long distance relationships. We happen to be talking about long distance relationships in this podcast, but whenever you're going through anything difficult, right? And life will find ways to give you something difficult. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran that you're going to be tested, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have tested. So when those tests come, check in. Just you might be feeling okay. You might be feeling like, you know what, I have the emotional resources to be able to handle this, and I'm managing. And whether or not your spouse tells you, they might be struggling. They might be struggling. So check in, create that space. Say, hey, I've been feeling this way and this way and this way. How have you been feeling? And if you want to make it feel a little bit more safe for them to be able to say what's wrong, usually what I do is I say what's run wrong on my end. So I say, I've been having difficulty with this and that.
Yeah.
But this has been helping me.
Yeah.
This is what's been getting me through. Have you been what are there any areas that you found difficult? Right? So in the case of long distance relationships, like the amount of time that we're talking, I know it's only 15 minutes a day, but that 15 minutes has been really helpful for me. It gets me through the day, and I'm really grateful for that. Do you think it's been enough for you? Is there other things that we should be doing, right?
I've been trying to learn how to crack an egg with one hand, and that's been tough. That's been tough going.
Yeah.
How about you?
I don't. I just use a fork. I'm good.
That's.
I use the
I'm
fork
so
to crack
sorry
the
to hear
eggs.
that. That's horrible news.
That I use the fork to
I
crack an
can't
egg?
believe I even brought up. I'm so sorry. Just ignore the egg.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right.
Like,
There's-
you have it so much harder than I do.
Honestly, there's so many jokes that are going
Is
through
there
my
anything I
mind
can
that I'm
do
not
for
gonna
you?
say. No, I'm okay. I'm good.
Are you sure you're okay?
I think I'm all right.
A
Alhamdulillah.
fork is the worst type. The worst type of utensil.
I don't know. That's the first time I cracked an egg. I used the fork.
What torture have they subjected you to?
Subhanallah. The first time I cracked an egg, I used the fork. It's been working. There was no reason to change it. I'm gonna be 80 years old, 90 years old,
You're
inshallah.
gonna have
I'm
to change
just
your
using a
ways. You're
fork.
gonna have to. There's gonna be that fork in the road.
Okay, I knew it was coming. But that's inshallah. So hopefully that's clear. So if it was the sister and she was our client, she was my client,
Yeah.
and she came in and to see me.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd congratulate her on getting married. That's always wonderful. And I tell her that this, at the very beginning of her marriage, is a beautiful opportunity. Because whenever I'm talking to newlyweds and they come up, usually they don't come to see me until a challenge has come up, right?
Yeah.
So they'll come and they'll tell me, maybe somebody lost a job, or maybe, subhanAllah, there was illness, or maybe somebody got pregnant, or maybe there's some kind of challenge. And as a result of the challenge, communication broke down. They're having a disconnection happens.
Yeah.
It's only been a year. It's only been 6 months. And then they come see me. So the first thing I do is, if it's been recent, congratulate them on the marriage, because that's not easy to do in this day and
Absolutely.
age. The second thing is remind them that Alhamdulillah, life is going to be full of challenges,
Yeah.
and to use this as an opportunity to have like on the job experience of developing a good conflict resolution routine that is going to take you through the rest of your marriage.
Yeah.
Developing that beautiful foundation of communication, real effective communication skills that actually get to the heart of the matter, right? That actually allow both of you to have to speak about what it is that you need, and for you to also receive from the information that you need from your partner to
Yeah.
be able to help them meet their needs as well. That level of communication skills, you can only get that. You can get. I usually teach it to people in a 2-week course, but you can really solidify those skills by on the job training.
Yeah.
Sorry. So when you have that opportunity, take that opportunity.
It's
So
not intuitive.
no, it's not. So when she comes to see me, I would take her through the 5 steps of conflict resolution. We spoke about it before on this podcast, right? Where she
They're very similar to the 5 steps of grief.
wildly different. They're actually wildly
are they?
Yes, because conflict resolution.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's conflict resolution is not a grieving matter. In Shaa Allah. Inshallah. If it is beyond my pay grade, please go see a marriage counselor. But the 5 steps we've spoken about before. First step is when you acknowledge, where you give your best guess of how the other person is feeling.
Yeah.
Right. You always start with validating your partner's experience. So step 1, validate their experience and say, look, I understand. In this case, I understand that you're very busy and you have a lot of commitments. Right. And it's demanding a lot of your time. So you
have a right to feel that way.
Absolutely. So your best guess of what it is that you think that they're going through. If you get it wrong, they'll tell you, they're like, that's not what's going on at all.
That's not what's going on.
And if that isn't what's going on, you let them tell you, right? You're like, oh, I'm so sorry. That's okay.
Are you willing to open up to me?
Yes, but you say, I'm so sorry, I didn't understand, and then you let them explain it to you, and then you try again until you understand their, right? So the first step is to validate and understand their point of view.
Let me help you.
And then validate and understand their point of view. The second step is to talk about your experience, right? So first step was, I understand that you're really busy, etc. The second step is, in this case, would be, but I've been feeling very disconnected, right? Mm-hmm. Especially in this new stage of our marriage. It's really important to me that I feel like I can come to you and talk to you about things, especially because I'm going to be coming and moving to this place where the only person I'll know is you. It becomes even more important to me that we have a connection like we did before.
Yeah.
Right. And I know, and and having this level of disconnection is very painful for me. So this is going to require a little bit of introspection, a little bit of vulnerability to try to articulate as best as you can. What is it that you have been experiencing? Like if it was medicine, if this was a doctor and they're palpating or touching your abdomen and they're asking you, where does it hurt? Can you touch and point with one finger where it hurts? So emotionally, can you touch and point with one finger where it hurts? Can you articulate what is the issue here? And if you can, this is challenging for some people, especially if we're not used to talking about our feelings. So this is a situation where you might need to go take some time away before the discussion happens. Really journal about it. Sometimes on my case, when I take a walk, I talk it through. I talk out loud. I look like an unstable person, but I talk to myself to try to get the words right? And to try to get the words right that are in line and aligned with how I'm feeling, with what it is that hurts. Yeah. So step 2, talk about your experience in as accurate and as best terms as you can manage in whatever language that the two of you understand. Step 3, check in. Right? Check in where you ask them, did that make sense? Yeah. Right? And the goal is for them to try to repeat to you what they understood about what you said, because it's important they understand what your experience was, just like you understood what theirs was in step 1. Then step 4 is going to be where you now state your need, right? So number 2, you spoke about your experience. Number 3, you checked in and he told you what he understood. And step 4 is now you're going to state your need, and your need general but specific, right?
Yeah.
So for example, for me, it might be something like, my love language is words of affirmation.
Yeah.
And when you text me, right? When you text me, especially when you text me something thoughtful that I know that is coming from a moment where you remembered me throughout the day, these mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
And this is what makes me feel very connected.
Yeah.
So what my need is like, if I could get more of those texts, it would really help me.
Yeah.
So you state your need, or this, in simpler terms, the solution. What is the solution? What is the thing that your partner can do to make your experience better?
Yeah.
Right? And then,
Or someone else can say.
and step 5.
Yeah.
And step 5 is where you check in one more time and ask them, did that make sense? You know, so that they can repeat back to you if they understood what it is, what you want them to do.
Yeah.
Right? So those
Someone
are
else
5
can
steps.
say, my love language is gift giving. So if like every day at 12 o'clock you can just give me like $100, that's sufficient.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't even have to say hi or anything like that. Just give me $100 and I'm good for the rest of the day.
Okay.
You know?
All right.
But if you don't have $100, we're gonna have to talk for 12 hours.
Yeah, I'll take that deal. I'll take that deal. But inshallah, that was clear about how she can start to have that conversation with him. So she's going to need to have that conversation with her, and use it as use this distance and this issue and this challenge as a way to practice having conversations like that on that level, because that will serve them later on in their marriage. And then finally, if he's willing to collaborate with her in order to help her get her needs met, they can even take some time out to try to create a little schedule, right? A little schedule that works for both of them on when they can connect.
Yeah.
So you can say, you know what, I have some time in the morning before I go to work or during my commute. What if we call each other at that time and have a conversation at that time? That would do wonders for her, right? So it's just being a little bit collaborative and being interested in meeting your partner's needs bilaterally, because that's all a marriage is, right? And that's why the most important question I ask a new couple is your spouse want you to be okay? Is he interested, or is she interested in your well-being?
Absolutely.
So I think we've gone way over time. So I think that's it for. Did we miss anything?
No. You did wonderful.
Yeah.
Feel affirmed.
I always do. Alhamdulillah. I always do. Jazaa K'Allah Khayr. So that is how to deal with long distance relationships.
Yeah.
Just like we said at the top of the podcast, if you're completely single and you are not in any talking stage with somebody who is in a who is long distance, don't do it. But if you do it, if you are in a situation where you're single and you're in a talking stage, go. Inshallah, the advice that we provided is useful, and if you're married, inshallah, the advice we provided is useful.
If we had a different naming convention for our podcast, I would have liked the title that you gave it earlier, Kites and Canyons.
Yeah. All right. And it would just be completely ambiguous about what we talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just be surprised.
Some podcasts do that.
They do.
This one is called Kites and Canyons in Spirit.
We should write that underneath. The Muslim Marriage Podcast, aka Kites and Canyons.
Oh, yeah?
No, we're not going to do that. Because the way you're looking at me, you're like, are we going to do it?
Yeah, because you're substituting the name of the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is the name of the title.
Okay, maybe.
Of the episode.
Maybe a future podcast where we just talk about nothing.
Where we talk about kites and canyons.
And so in the future, inshallah, we'll do another podcast where we talk about nothing. And we can call it that.
All right, we'll call it the Kites and Canyons.
Okay, all right. So if you somehow, despite all odds, are still listening, Jazaa K'Allah Khayr, we really appreciate you. We really appreciate our audience. And inshallah, what we said today was beneficial for you. If you are a woman and you are single and you are using the dating apps, I provide a free training for Muslim women on how to use the dating apps so that they actually work. The link to that will be in the about of our YouTube. And if you're listening to it on Spotify or Apple or any other podcast format, it's also in the description. There should be the link there as well. That's it. If you haven't subscribed, we would really appreciate if you would. It really helps us out.
Button's right there.
Yes, it really.
Just go ahead and move your mouse over there. Yep, right there, and just click at. There you go.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Jazaa K'Allah Khayr.
Mohammed, I see you. You didn't move your mouse.
People are gonna feel so attacked. That's a safe bet. So Jazaa K'Allah Khayr if you have subscribed, and if you haven't, if you would, it would really help us out. If you have any questions or any comments or any quips or literally anything at all, feel free to write it in the comments or reach out to us in any of the ways that are available. All of them are in the about section. And I believe that's everything. So Jazaa K'Allah Khayr. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your week. And Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.